Hello, and welcome to Santa Fe Matters. Today my guest is Sarah Pierpont. Hi, Sarah.
Hi,
Thanks for
Gilda.
coming.
Happy to be here.
Good. So tell me, why don't you give us your title and what you do for New Mexico?
Okay, I am the Executive Director of the New Mexico Recycling Coalition. We are a statewide nonprofit that has the mission of inspiring New Mexicans to reduce, reuse, and recycle. We've been around since 1991. We've done projects ranging from federal grants to help build rural recycling in communities to focusing on outreach campaigns. Our members are generally like the municipalities, the federal entities, the tribes, the government entities, and less so the general public. So we're not like a Sierra Club, we're more like a professional members group that helps build recycling in our state and helps educate on best practices and how to implement those.
So how long have you been with New Mexico Recycling Coalition?
I started in 2006 and I became the director in 2015.
Okay, so you've been around for a long time.
I've been around for a long time.
And you've seen all the different changes around the state and what people are doing. And I think it's great because there were a lot of communities in New Mexico that are so far out there that didn't have opportunities to recycle. And you guys, New Mexico Recycling Coalition, actually made it possible for these little communities to start recycling. So I think that's awesome.
You're right, yes.
And you know, it was a great thing. And you got federal funding to help do that. And it worked out really great for these little communities. I kind of wanted to talk today a little bit about, you know, well, we talked earlier a year ago, there was a China ban. So I wanted to kind of give our residents an update on what all the, and myself, because I have been kind of out of the loop on what's actually going on with that, and talk a little bit about recycling. So.
Right, so in January of 2018, China announced that they would ban the import of all scrap materials. So that means all of the material, the recyclables that the U.S. was shipping to China, which is about 40%, or about $5.6 billion worth of material in 2017.
So can you just give me an idea of what those materials were?
So that was like the mixed paper, plastic 1 and 2, aluminum, cardboard, the things that most Americans are used to putting in their bin on recycling day. And what it did was it immediately dropped the demand for U.S. recyclables by 40%, while the supply remained the same because residents were well trained, they're used to recycling. So like any economy, when the supply and demand is off like that, it really reduces prices of the material. And for a little while it was hard for those recyclers throughout the country. Primarily the Pacific Northwest had a really hard time because they exported a lot, but it was hard for them to find a market for the material. So recycling is a commodity. It works because someone wants it to make something else. And if you can't find the market, then the whole system gets thrown off. So it was a tough year for recyclers, but I'm really proud of New Mexico recyclers and the country overall. They've worked well, they've persevered, they're finding new markets, they're discussing bringing markets domestically. And one of the things that everyone has done is really focusing on reducing contamination.
Well, good. So you mentioned that you have to have a market. So is the United States working on creating their own markets? And
they are.
So that maybe we don't have to depend on other countries to take our recycling, you know, finding people here that can use it and make something out of it. So I think that was one of the things that was a big you know, question mark. Is anybody looking at doing that, and has it changed a little bit?
And that is the silver lining. I mean, obviously, if you're looking at the giant picture of greenhouse gases, it makes more sense to recycle your material domestically than to ship it overseas. And so the National Recycling Coalition is leading these stakeholder groups throughout the country, regional market development workshops to kind of talk about who's doing what. There's a company out of Houston that has expanded into Iowa and is going to expand to Colorado that can take your old like soy milk and milk cartons, those aseptic and gable top cartons, and they smush it down and they make it into like a drywall or a roofing material. It's the same characteristics that you want from your milk carton. It's not moldy. It's it's fireproof. All these things works really well in drywall or roofing material. So that's one creative market. Some of the more traditional markets like plastics and paper. Plastics are easier to make a market. To make a plastic facility, you basically need to shred the plastic, wash it, melt it down a little bit, and now you have the starter material.
Right.
So that might be a couple $1 million. And so those markets are beginning to grow more in the United States. A paper mill is more like, you know, a $30 million giant 10-acre thing, you know, facility. Right.
It's more of a process.
Right. It's more of a process. So the paper market is having a little bit of a slower time rebounding. But there's a New Mexico success story. We have BioPapel or McKinley paper out near Grants, New Mexico, and they make the liner for your cardboard.
Oh, okay.
And they can, so when you recycle your cardboard at the curb, there's a very good chance that it goes to the manufacturing facility near Grants, New Mexico. Well, that BioPapel McKinley paper just purchased an old paper mill that had been shuttered for 20 years in a small town in the state of Washington, and they're going to work to reopen that to be able to recycle and make new paper directly in another corner of the country. So
that's great.
I think that'll be in early next year, but it's the wheels are turning.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, this is a big question, glass. That's always a big
yes.
thing. So
well, in New Mexico and in Santa Fe, the people at the Santa Fe Solid Waste Management Agency have done a really good job doing studies and going out to bids, and they found the best solution for the glass in our state is to send it to Coors in Colorado.
Good. Yes.
So when you recycle your glass and then you buy a 6-pack for the big football game, there's a chance that that is the same glass.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So they send it up to Coors.
That's great, because I know they were working on that when I was at the city. So
Yeah.
that's wonderful. I'm glad to hear that they found a place to take it
Right.
and it's working out great for them. So one of the things that you mentioned was contamination. So now I know residents are doing really well with their recycling and everything, but let's talk about doing it right.
Right. So like any supply and demand, when the demand goes down and supply is the same, you have to have a really clean product, and recycling is no different. Contamination could be food waste, it could be the wrong materials, and I think there's kind of two reasons for that. One of that we call the aspirational or wishful recycler. You know, they look at the you know, I bought a light bulb, and you know how the packaging is like takes 5 minutes to open, and it's plastic, and there's some metal, and there's some paper, and you're like, well, plastic and metal and paper, that's recyclable, but that's not in that form. So they're aspirational. They want it to be recycled. They have this idea of they can recycle it.
Right.
And so it's the good intentions, and the other ones might just be people who just don't bother to learn the right system. So.
They're just throwing it in.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So there's some really simple ways to remember it, and I brought some items to show you.
Great.
Okay, so this is our first one. You know, Santa Fe is really lucky. We have the bag ban, so we don't have as many plastic bags in our community as we used to, but there are a lot of plastic bags. Your garbage bag, and this never ever goes in your curbside bin. Even if it's filled with aluminum cans, we don't want it.
Right.
Because when it goes to the curbside bin and it's in a plastic bag, all of our curbside recycling goes to what's called a MRF.
Right.
It's called a Materials Recovery Facility. The one that we have in our state is Friedman Recycling in Albuquerque. If you're really interested, people can go on tours and see how it works. And this is where they unscramble the egg, you know, that's how we call it. You know, everything is commingled together at the curb. And they have these giant like fluffers that get the paper and the cardboard out. They have an eddy current magnet that pulls out the tin. They have optic sorters that like optically look if it's a plastic 1 or 2. And then they have a lot of staff. They have staff on a conveyor belt sorting the material, and they never want these because these are called a tangler. This, your old Christmas lights, your garden hose, it goes like this and it gets stuck in the material, it gets stuck in the equipment. And they have to shut down the entire operation, make sure everything's really safe, and close down the whole facility to clean this out. So we don't want plastic bags ever in the recycling bin. If you do want to recycle them, most retailers have a spot outside their front door. You could put that at the recycling area.
And that'll go somewhere else.
That'll go somewhere else, usually to make the fake lumber, like at the parks.
Yeah.
You know, the Tyvek lumber or something. So these stay out of the recycling bin. Other things to think about, like this is, you know, delicious ice cream and coffee. All right, so this is paper, correct?
Right.
But once you eat it, and this is going to have a lot of ice cream left in it. This has leftover coffee. We don't.
And all the other.
And all the other stuff. And the cream and sugar, if it's mine, lots of cream and sugar. These things, and this is the plastic thing, and you can see there's a little recycling circle in number 5. So yes, this could be recycled. But when you put it in the bin, it's too small. It gets lost in the equipment.
Okay.
It's these sort of things, and that's why straws are such a sticking point lately.
Right.
straws, little things like this, they're not going to make it through their sorting equipment. This is trash. This is trash. And this item, covered in you know, food and everything, is trash or compost. I mean, if this has coffee and sugar and cream in it, those are all compostable, and it's paper, I can put that in my backyard compost bin. Same with this one. It's paper and it has some ice cream residue. I could put this in my backyard compost bin. This lid that has the plastic around that, I would throw these 2 lids away and then compost these.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So these are not recyclable.
These are not recyclable. They're compostable.
And even though they did a really nice job of cleaning it out,
it's all wet.
It's wet.
It's like, yeah.
And you can't recycle
yeah.
it. So
yeah.
that's good to know.
Yeah. And this is definitely, keep that out of your curbside cart. Any plastic bag, even if it's filled with recyclables.
Yeah, empty the recyclables in the bin and then take the plastic bag, because that's not recyclable.
Well, because if you see the gentlemen and ladies that are on the sort line, it's going fast. If they see a black bag, they take it and put it in the trash.
Right.
There's no time to open it up and see that it's full of aluminum or plastic.
Right. So
a few other items that are recyclable, you know, this is a PET #1 plastic. This is a #5 plastic. We want these. Put them in your curbside bin.
So I noticed that there's
a little bit of that.
So
before you recycle that,
empty it out. Okay.
Dump that down the drain. Or if you're composting, put that in your compost. Okay. This is tin. This is a great thing to have in your recycling. There was at one time people said to take the labels off. That's not necessary. The process now can remove that when they're sorting the material. This is fiber. This is a very recyclable or compostable. This is great to have in your curbside bin. And
now
then
let me ask you about, I know egg cartons are different.
Yes.
They all vary. So this kind of egg carton is compostable or recyclable, but the foam ones, what about
Styrofoam is not recyclable anywhere in our state, except if you happen to work at Sandia National Labs.
Then you can take them there.
Then you can take them there. That's for their own internal purposes. Right. But so Styrofoam cannot go any curbside bins. It is, and that's another thing, like driving down Agua Fria, where I put my trash out and recyclables out every week. I've seen Styrofoam in the recycling bin, and then it falls out, and then it turns into those itty bitty pieces, and it's a giant, it's a giant litter issue. So I know that if you get a new TV, get a new computer, it's going to have Styrofoam. That's unavoidable. But there's a lot of Styrofoam that is avoidable. Avoidable. That's a good one. Styrofoam cups, Styrofoam plates, just don't buy them.
So yeah, I think you really kind of, if you can, be mindful of how you buy certain things, like your eggs. And I know nowadays they just come kind of with just this part of the egg cart.
Right, I saw that too at the store.
So, be a little bit mindful about egg cartons and the Styrofoam and the plastic and all of that.
And one thing that, you would think everyone had been so well trained since the 70s, but you'd be surprised. Aluminum cans, these should never go in the trash. These have such high value. They're about 65 cents a pound when they sell them at the recycling center. They can be recycled forever, and they save so much energy from recycling these instead of mining the virgin material and making it. So these definitely always go in the recycling bin.
Awesome. And I think, that's a no-brainer. That's always been. So
another type of plastic, this is it's a #2 plastic, I think. So this is like, your laundry detergent bottles, HDPE, your clear milk jugs. This is what, this actually has a high value, and there's a good market for it. So make sure you put those in there as well.
So let me just, let's talk a little bit about bathroom products now, because, for the longest time, people didn't even think about their bathroom products as being recycled. And so I know you're trying to remind people that those things are recyclable. So shampoo
bottles,
conditioner,
hair product bottles, not the aerosol cans necessarily, but conditioner, all those. I wear contacts. My contact lens bottle for the solution is recyclable.
So almost having a recycling bin in the bathroom is a good thing.
Absolutely.
So okay, great.
All right, and then the other item is this is called chipboard or gray board. It's like what cereal boxes are made out of. It can be recycled in the curb here in Santa Fe, and there's a market for this. It can be sometimes it's mixed with the other cardboard or with the paper, so this can be recycled as well.
Awesome. And then glass, of course.
And then glass. And in Santa Fe, a lot of people because I work in the recycling, they say, oh, I'm so sad they took away glass recycling. They don't recycle glass anymore. Yeah. It's really not true. They just don't recycle it at the curb.
Right.
And there's 3 or 4 drop-off spots located pretty conveniently around town. The one I always go to is by your old office on Seiler.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because when glass breaks, there's 2 things. It's a safety issue for the employees. You don't want to have sharp things they could cut themselves on. And when glass breaks, it can contaminate the paper, the fibers, and they don't want those little pieces of glass at the mill. And if a community is making a lot of mistakes like that at a mill, when the mill is the place that turns that recycled paper into new paper, then that mill can say, we're not going to take your material anymore. So to keep the paper really clean, we keep the glass out of the paper at our curbside program.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are, I think, at least 4 drop-off locations. We have the Buckman Road Recycling and Transfer Station that takes the glass. Fort Marcy, I believe they still have that drop-off. Seiler Road has a drop-off. And then out on Airport Road off of Calle Lucia, I think is the... So there are drop-offs for your glass. And we are still taking it. We're just out here in Santa Fe. It's just not at the curbside. So it's still recyclable. And I think a lot of people... are still taking it, even though it's not at their curb, and enjoying smashing it in the dump.
Right, it is kind of fun to do that.
Yes, I met a woman who said that's her kids' entertainment. The kids love to do that.
Yeah.
So,
that's a good way to look at it.
There you
got your aggression for the day.
Yep, exactly.
And I think the tonnage from what Santa Fe is recycling on glass, when they switched from the curbside to the drop-off programs, I think it went down, maybe 20% or so. But I think it's kind of rebounding. So it's not like we're even recycling that much less glass, just by asking residents to do a little extra effort. So I do think that shows that Santa Feans want to recycle, they want to do the right thing, they want to recycle right.
Yep, definitely. And I think all over the state, we're really working towards recycling right and doing some great things. So let's talk a little bit about the bag ban. I know Santa Fe is already has a bag ban, but ban. Maybe we need some more coffee.
Maybe that coffee should come sooner.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what's going on around the state with that. So
Santa Fe is the first state or the first city in the state to have the bag ban. There's lots of states nationwide that are doing this. And other cities are trying to follow suit. We had Silver City introduce something similar. Espanola has shown interest. But the city of Albuquerque just introduced an ordinance for the city council to limit the distribution of plastic bags, plastic straws, and styrofoam takeout containers.
Oh, great.
So that's a really kind of a comprehensive effort to do the similar thing. In Santa Fe, if you forget your reusable grocery bag, you pay 10 cents. And it is amazing how much that incentive works for me, and I'm sure other people. I'm like, no, I'll go run to the car. I'm not paying 10 cents.
I'll just take it to the car like that.
I'm running a bag. So it's a great incentive to bring your own reusable bag, but that money also helps fund programs in the city that help go to outreach and education.
Right.
And it also buys bags that they can distribute that are reusable. Albuquerque's a little different. They have the same thing. You can pay 10 cents for the alternative, whether it's a paper bag or a biodegradable cup or something like that, and then the retailer gets to keep that fee because they want to make sure that retailers, if they're paying more money for a biodegradable or compostable or recyclable material, they're compensated. So similar and a little different in some ways. And if this is to go into effect and pass, it would be in January of 2020. So something to keep an eye out for our state's biggest city.
I think it's a great thing because I've gone to other cities in the state since we've had the bag ban, and it's wonderful to not see all those bags in our trees and our fence lines and everything else. And you go to cities that don't have that, and you're seeing that. So it has been great, I think, for Santa Fe, and I think it'd be great around the state because we have high winds.
Yes.
The trash and stuff flies everywhere.
And so my organization, the New Mexico Recycling Coalition, is officially in support of this, and I'm going to go to the meeting tonight and read our letter of support. But there's the litter reasons. There's the bags should not be at the recycling center, at the curb. The fact that there's nowhere to recycle styrofoam in the state. All these reasons want to remind us of the reduce, reuse, recycle. That reduce is the first one.
Right.
So, don't do it first. Don't create the problem to begin with.
exactly. And I know everybody's looking for convenience, but
it is true. But think about in Santa Fe at first, some people were against it. They liked the plastic bags for whatever. But we got well trained in like what?
Yeah,
a
it
day?
didn't take long at all.
Yeah.
And like coffee.
Look at your.
You know, these are, really inexpensive. You can get them everywhere. Everybody likes
And they keep your coffee so hot.
They do.
Great.
So, instead of take your own cup.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
You could just do things like that. So there's lots of.
Right. It's just sort of training.
Yeah, it's training. People get used to a certain way, but eventually they'll get used to it, and then it's,
right.
So that's great. So you said Las Cruces is working on something also?
They are not currently. They've discussed it in the past.
Okay.
Silver City wanted to introduce something.
Okay.
But I think that will happen. So, Las Cruces partners a lot with El Paso because they are so close.
Right.
And so they kind of look to see what El Paso's doing to do the similar thing because their material goes to the same place,
right.
the recyclables. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense then.
Yeah.
So we're doing great things around the state as far as recycling. We're really trying to keep up. But again, think about things when you're buying them, and less waste, I guess, is what you're trying to accomplish. So.
Right, and one of the big ways to achieve less waste is to consider composting. In Santa Fe, there is a business, Unity Resources, that will contract with restaurants and the Whole Foods and schools. Right. I think they work with most of the Santa Fe public schools, and they take those food scraps, they take it out to the community farm, the food scraps, and then they put in wood chips because you have to have the carbon and the nitrogen mixed together, and they make this beautiful compost, and then they can sell to landscapers and residents. I've used it on my garden and grew a bumper crop of veggies. Right. So it's a nice system, but that is for the restaurants. If you're a resident, the best thing to do is your own backyard composting program. And I'm not totally sure the details, but I know Santa Fe County just had a program where any county resident that they wanted, they would hire a compost consultant to come to your house in your backyard and set up a straw bale compost area where you could take your kitchen scraps and take your items and kind of teach you how to do it. And they might do that again, so it might be worth looking at Santa Fe County's website.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We'll have to have them on and talk to them a little bit about that. That's great. Mm-hmm. So what other things do you want to fill us in on anything that's happening here?
Well, we've kind of started what we've kind of loosely called the Rio Grande Recycling Corridor. And that's Santa Fe, Albuquerque, Las Cruces, and even El Paso. And it's where all of those solid waste leaders are checking in with each other and sharing best practices. And I really appreciate that because, Las Cruces and El Paso just did a pretty comprehensive contamination program where they went and walked the routes. On recycling day, they would put the blue bins out and they walked through them. They opened up the bin. If they saw, there's a lot of plastic bags, there's too much of this or that, if they did something wrong, they got an oops tag and had a cute picture of a little girl like hitting her head. And that's oops, and it tells you what to do right.
Right.
And if they were doing something right, they got a good job.
That's
And
great.
Just in like a 6-week period, they could get like 30,000 houses. And so it's a great way, and they reduced their contamination by 15%.
Wow, that's great.
It's a great way to share those ideas. So because of those partnerships and just the information sharing, Albuquerque and Santa Fe are considering doing a similar thing. So it's so we're trying to keep that communication lines open.
Oh, good. That sounds like a great idea. And it helped. It worked.
It worked.
And the contamination
went down 15%.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, thank you for coming today and talking to us about, what's going on with New Mexico Recycling Coalition. So you guys are the top tier of everything that's going on around the state. You kind of know what everybody's doing.
Yeah.
And they come to you pretty much for information. And so real quick, do you have an idea of how many communities in New Mexico that don't have recycling? I mean, do we all pretty much have a recycling program?
We call it access to recycling. You mentioned our rural recycling program, and this was kind of a windfall for the state. During Obama years, we got a stimulus fund grant to help build access to recycling in small communities. So the hub and spoke system and that access to recycling program that we did, it increased access by 115%. So we built over 80 new recycling areas, and that might be a recycling trailer in Springer, New Mexico, a tiny town where you drop off, residents come and drop off their material. And that's enough. That's enough for that small town. So the areas that kind of are still, we still want to focus on a little bit, still need a little work, are in the northwest part of our state, in Catron County a little bit. There's some areas that are really rural and remote, and we want to make sure that those residents can still recycle. But a lot of the people, like in the northeastern part of our state, like kind of up on the north and east of Raton, they're in such a small area, they often go to Raton to shop. And so Raton was one of our partners. They will accept their material when they come in. So we're still, we're still wanting to make sure that our rural communities do have that recycling option, and that they're still doing okay with the new situation with China's ban on scrap material, and so far they are.
Well, good.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants more information, is there a website that they can go to?
recyclenewmexico.com, and there's resources and educational information, but it's Recycle New Mexico spelled out .com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Sarah, again, and thank you all for joining us at Santa Fe Matters.